Special coverage and interviews from several gas-producing and exporting countries will be broadcast by the Algerian radio thanks to its network of correspondents.
محمد بن سلطان مبعوث الإذاعة الجزائرية إلى العاصمة القطرية الدوحة.
سي دكار ثم ناخذ السنغال كريم الحاج محمد وش قالنا راديو ثغنوث.
رابح هوادف مبعوث الإذاعة الجزائرية إلى العاصمة الموريتانية نقشو.
You can follow the event from February 29 to March 2nd on the waves and digital platforms of the Algerian radio.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has reaffirmed that Algeria, which is celebrating the double anniversary of the creation of the Algerian Workers' Union and the nationalization of hydrocarbons, is going through deep changes. The Prime Minister Nadir Arbawi has inaugurated the gas production center of Hassi Bouhamou as part of a working visit to the southern province of Timimoun. As the UN Relief Agency for Palestinian UNRWA has warned against a mass famine threat in the Gaza Strip, new airstrikes have been carried out by the Israeli occupation army against various parts of the territory. Those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has affirmed that Algeria, which is celebrating the double anniversary of the creation of the Algerian Workers' Union and the nationalization of hydrocarbons, is going through deep changes. In a message read on his behalf by the Prime Minister Nadir Arbawi on the occasion of the festivities marking the double anniversary, President Tebboune stressed that the changes followed global reforms undertaken by the country. On the occasion, he expressed his gratitude to all the workers and recalled that the creation of the Algerian Workers' Union constituted a crucial phase of the Algerian people's struggle to recover its independence. In this respect, the head of state urged all the live forces to adhere to the reform process undertaken to build the new Algeria and stressed the necessity to safeguard the forces' unity to face up to the challenges the world is confronted to. He recalled that 141 dwells were created in fulfillment of the 21 commitment taken by the head of state. And now the Prime Minister Nadir Arbawi has inaugurated the gas production center of Hassi Bouhamou as part of a working visit to the southern province of Timimoun. Mr. Arbawi received exhaustive explanations on the new center before inspecting its various divisions and structures. Earlier, the Prime Minister presided over the festivities marking the double anniversary of the creation of the General Union of Algerian Workers and the nationalization of hydrocarbons. The Prime Minister was accompanied by the large delegation, including the Interior Minister Ibrahim Merad, the Energy and Mines Minister Mohamed Erkeb, as well as the Secretary General of the General Union of Algerian Workers, Amal Takshdou, and the CEO of the state-owned oil company Sonatrach, Rashid Hashishi. And now the Speaker of the People's National Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, is in Windhoek, Namibia, to attend the funeral of the late President of the Republic of Namibia, Hage Geingob, as representative of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. The Sahrawi President and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Mr. Ibrahim Ghali, has said that a referendum on self-determination for the Sahrawi people is the best solution for the decolonization of Western Sahara. More details with Jamal Salmani.
The Sahrawi president, who led a delegation to the 37th session of the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, was quoted by the Sahrawi press agency as saying that Western Sahara is fighting an asymmetrical and unequal war, but it is waging a war of attrition, which is having an impact on Morocco's socio-economic and political situation. He added that there was no equality either in number or in means, apart from the fact that the Moroccan regime is a real ally of the Israeli occupation, recalling that the will of the Sahrawi people remains very strong. Referring to the role of the UN in resolving the conflict between the Sahrawi Republic and the Kingdom of Morocco, two member countries of the AU, President Ghali stressed that the UN was called upon to fulfill its mission in this territory by organizing a referendum, because this is a question of decolonization. President Ghali stressed that the Polisario Front was the first to accept the UN Special Envoy de Mistura, adding that Morocco took around 6 months to respond to the Secretary General's request for the de Mistura's appointment and then accepted it after international pressure. But so far, de Mistura has only encountered obstacles put up by Morocco and has not made any progress because of these obstacles. President Ghali noted that the UN Special Envoy was trying to establish contacts and unlock the situation here and there, expressing hope that he will have real and effective support from the Security Council to move forward and enable MINURSO to fulfill its mission as stipulated in Resolutions 690, 658, namely the organization of a referendum on self-determination for the Sahrawi people.
And now, as the UN Relief Agency for Palestinians, UNRWA, has warned against a mass famine threat in the Gaza Strip, new airstrikes have been carried out by the Israeli occupation army against various parts of the territory. More details in this report by Jamal Silmani.
Palestinian sources said over 100 people were killed for the past 24 hours in the Israeli bombardments. The large-scale operation launched by the Israeli army on Gaza over 4 months ago has claimed over 29,600 lives and displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. According to the UN, most of the inhabitants of Gaza, representing about 2.2 million people, are on the brink of famine. UNRWA affirmed that the humanitarian situation continued to worsen in Gaza as the food supplies are low, notably in the southern town of Rafah, where at least 1.4 million displaced are massed. The funneling of humanitarian aid is hampered by the ongoing fighting. This came as the UN High Commission for Human Rights called for an immediate end to be put to the exports to Israel of arms and ammunition likely to be used in Gaza and therefore constitute a violation of the international humanitarian law. In a communique, it urged all the states to see to it that the international humanitarian law be respected and to consequently abstain from transferring arms, ammunition and spare parts that could be used in violation of the international law. In this respect, the UN Commission held the decision taken by some countries, including Belgium, Italy and Spain, to suspend the transfer of arms to Israel. Our colleague met the Spanish campaigner and political advocacy and social movement activist Alice Samson Estape. She has more on the issue.
The Spanish state's solidarity with the Palestinian people is old and considerable, mainly during the recent months. On account of the genocide in Gaza, our efforts have intensified, as highlighted the large protest held last January. Tomorrow, February 25th, similar rallies will be held in 100 towns and cities across Spain to take concrete actions to end arms sales to Israel, contrary to the government, which it describes as an accomplice in the genocide perpetrated against the Palestinian people.
That was the Spanish campaigner and political advocacy and social movement activist Alice Samson Estape.
And now thousands of people took part in several cities in Argentina warning for the food emergency in one of the increasing mobilizations against the measures of the ultra-liberal government of Javier Milei. The mobilization under the theme "The Food Emergency Cannot Wait Anymore," responding to the call of trade unions, small parties and social movement of the left or far left. On its part, the CGT Federation announced that a general strike will take place, the second one since President Milei took office. The demonstrators protested against the scheduled reworking of the public food aid to the 30,000 meal centers across the country. According to the latest 2023 figures, more than 40% of the population in Argentina is poor. The Milei government plans to remove each individual soup kitchen and to put in place a system of direct aid aiming to exclude intermediaries such as social movements, which he described as poverty managers. And now Algeria is holding the 7th summit meeting of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, due to take place later this week here in Algiers. As part of our special coverage of the events, here's a program by my colleague Asia Bekkar.
energy minister affirmed that the upcoming gas summit is an important global event that will pave the way for a sustainable, secure and prosperous energy future for member states to make the gas industry contribute to ensuring energy security and supporting the energy transition for the long term. It will also give the opportunity for the heads of state and government to discuss global challenges in the field of gas with the presentations on the development of the gas markets in light of the geopolitical changes of the gas industry. The summit will provide high-level strategic guidance for the forum by adopting the Algiers Declaration, which guarantees the commitment of the member states to cooperate among each other to face the current global geopolitical challenges and guarantee the common interests of the member states. The upcoming gas summit will also contribute to reinforcing international gas partnerships, as reiterated by the Energy Minister several times.
The Summit of Gas Exporting Countries is a major event because it is an important platform to reinforce international partnership and discuss the current challenges in the field of energy. It is a world event in which Algeria will host the heads of state and government, heads of delegations and key players in this field from around the world.
Meanwhile, the Energy and Mines Minister Mohamed Arkab said that Algeria's growing cooperation with hydrocarbon-producing African countries such as Nigeria reinforces its potential as a regional energy hub. He shed light on Algeria's remarkable resilience in the unstable world gas market by positioning itself as a safe and trustworthy gas supplier. Algeria's growing cooperation with African gas-producing countries like Nigeria for the Trans-Saharan Gas Pipeline project strengthens her potential as a regional energy hub. At the geopolitical level, Algeria's location in North Africa makes it a strategic local supplier for Europe, and it also managed to gain new customers in Central and Eastern Europe, which was highlighted by the energy minister several times before.
Algeria is one of the main partners to Europe in terms of providing it with energy, particularly natural gas. Algeria has always been and will always be a safe and trustworthy energy exporter, notably in the field of gas energy and natural gas.
Meanwhile, the Sonatrach Group is seeking to strengthen its production capacities by investing abroad as part of partnership contracts in the field of research and hydrocarbons production in neighboring countries such as Libya, Mali and Niger, with an investment that amounts to $442 million between 2024 and 2028. Regarding the preservation of the environment, Algeria is working on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, a commitment that allows for the promotion of natural gas as a transition energy and the maintaining of its competitiveness. Meanwhile, the short time taken by Algeria to ensure the gas supply gives it another advantage, particularly for the Mediterranean countries. Algeria's reserves and recent gas discoveries offer promising prospects and reassure investors and importers on the long-term reliability. By combining natural resources and a long-term strategy, Algeria is positioning itself as a baseline gas partner.
And now Algeria is celebrating the double anniversary of the creation of the General Union of Algerian Workers and the nationalization of hydrocarbons. In this program by Aziz Al-Gassi, we introduce you to the founder of the General Union of Algerian Workers, Aissat Idir.
Aissat Idir was born in Jem'a Saharij in the province of Tizi Ouzou in June 1915. Of modest origin, he lost his mother at the age of 6 years. And after primary studies in his village, he received a scholarship to prepare the entrance examination at a school in Bouzaria. But an unfortunate incident during the test definitely closed the door to teaching. In 1935, he joined his uncle's family in Tunis and began his studies in law and economics until 1938. He did his military service in Tunisia and graduated with the rank of sergeant. Back in Algiers, he was invited to the competition to recruit personnel from the North African aeronautical workshops in Burj Al Bahri. He will stay there for nearly 10 years. He is promoted to senior accountant officer and is responsible for controlling the company's subsidiaries in North Africa. His travels allow him to get to know Tunisian trade union circles. He then dedicated himself to this task and was elected by his comrades in the executive board of workers in the public sector, affiliated to the French communist unions, and thought about founding an autonomous Algerian trade union organization. In the years 1946 and 47, he collaborated in writing articles for the newspaper of the Algerian People's Party, the Algerian Nation, where he was in charge of the section, the Algerian Proletariat. Suspected of having a relationship with a special organization, the army wing of Misal al-Hajj party, he was arrested by the French in 1950, but he was shortly released. Calling for a strike in the factory where he worked, the company dismissed him. He finds a position of head of department at Kokobat in the public works sector and joins the CGT union of the company. From 1949 to 1954, he led a group of trade unionists affiliated with the Movement for the Triumph of Democratic Freedoms, then chose to support FLN party. Arrested for some time for his trade union activities, he was released on December 22, 1954. Supported by the FLN, the Congress of February 26, 1956, agreed on the creation of the General Union of Algerian Workers and appointed Aissat Idir as its secretary. For 2 months, he devoted himself to setting up the union and established links with the International Confederation of Free Trade Unions. Patriotic strikes supported by the union led to a massive arrest of its leaders on May 23-24, 1956. Aissat Idir is arrested, as well as about 40 trade unionists. Suspected of being a member of the Coordination and Execution Committee, he is tortured by the paratroopers of French Colonel Bijard, who did not, however, suspect that he joined the National Council of the Algerian Revolution. He is charged with undermining the external security of the French state. He is defended by lawyer Henri Rollin, senator and former minister of the Belgian government. On January 13, 1959, he was acquitted. On leaving prison, he was arrested by 2 gendarmes and taken to Bertraria prison. The efforts of his supporters to free him did not pay. On January 17, he was rushed to hospital for serious burns. The army first evokes suicide, denied by Aissat Idir, then the accident. According to them, Aissat Idir would have set fire to his bench while smoking a cigarette. Steps taken by the International Confederation of Free Unionists to transfer him to a metropolitan hospital for burn victims are vain. In June 1959, the international body alerted public opinion to the fate of Aissat Idir, but he succumbed to his burns in July 1959. His death raises a huge wave of indignation among the International Trade Union. His body was buried in the cemetery of Sidi Mohammed.
And now this weekend we are celebrating the National Casbah Day. The various museums and historical and religious monuments in the ancient quarter of the Casbah of Algiers are attracting large numbers of visitors who come to appreciate the beauty of the site and its architectural heritage, which was included on UNESCO list of World Heritage Sites in 1992. Let know more about of the Casbah in this program by Jamal Salmani.
واللي صار يصير واللي صار يصير حياة شبابين في درة ما ننساش الخير ما ننساش.
The Casbah is a unique kind of Medina or Islamic city. It stands in one of the finest coastal sites on the Mediterranean, overlooking the islands, where a Carthaginian trading post was established in the 4th century before Christ. There are the remains of the citadel, old mosques and Ottoman-style palaces, as well as the remains of a traditional urban structure associated with a deep-rooted sense of community. The Casbah of Algiers is an outstanding example of a historic Maghreb city having had extensive influence on town planning in the western part of the Mediterranean and sub-Saharan Africa. Indeed, located on the Mediterranean coast, the site was inhabited at least from the 6th century BC, when a Phoenician trading post was established in there. The term Casbah, that originally designated the highest point of the Medina during the Zirid area, today applies to the ensemble of the old town of El Jazair, within the boundaries marked by the ramparts and built at the end of the 16th century, dating back to the Ottoman period. In this living environment where nearly 50,000 people reside, very interesting traditional houses, palaces, hammams, mosques and various souks are still conserved, the urban form of which bears witness of an effect of stratification of several styles in a complex and original system that has adapted remarkably well to a very hilly and uneven site. The Casbah of Algiers has exercised considerable influence on architecture and town planning in North Africa, Andalusia, and in sub-Saharan Africa during the 16th and 17th century. These exchanges are illustrated in the specific character of its houses and the density of its urban stratification, a model of human settlement where the ancestral lifestyle and Muslim customs have blended with other types of traditions. The Casbah of Algiers is an outstanding example of a traditional human settlement representing a profoundly Mediterranean Muslim culture, synthesis of numerous traditions. The vestige of the citadel, ancient mosques, Ottoman palaces, as well as the traditional urban structure associated with a strong sense of community testify to this culture and are the result of its interaction with the various layers of populations. Despite the changes and the earthquake risks experienced by the site, the Casbah of Algiers still retains its integrity. On the whole, the aesthetic character, material used, and the architectural elements retain their original aspect that expresses the values for which the site was inscribed on the World Heritage List in 1992. The continuing residential function has strengthened the viability of the site as well as the integrity of its image. Restoration work of the built heritage of the Casbah, undertaken in the framework of the Safeguarding and Valorization Plan, is in conformity with the local and national standards and contributes towards maintaining the integrity of the site. Nevertheless, there are threats to the integrity linked to densification and uncontrolled interventions. Other risks originate from earthquakes and fire, as well as landslides and floods. The attributes of the outstanding universal value for which the site was inscribed are maintained, The Casbah bears witness to a remarkable authenticity as regards the form and conception with its very dense urban planning. Construction materials with earthen bricks, earthen and lime rendering, stone and wood, and also the use, whether residential for trading or cult and popular customs. The survival of traditional architectural skills, notably in the building trades and architectural decoration, is a major advantage in support of the outstanding universal value. The Casbah of Algiers was listed as a National Historic Site in November 1991 and safeguarded sector in 2003. The state party considers, however, that it is necessary to revise the legal and administrative provisions relating to the property to improve its protection and enhancement. The management of the site is entrusted to the Cultural Directorate of the Wilaya or Province of Algiers. There is a continual need to conserve and rehabilitate the property to forestall deterioration of the urban fabric. Threats from the risks of earthquakes and the fire exist, whereas the landslides and floods always constitute a possible threat. A permanent plan for the safeguarding and the valorization of the safeguarded. The management plan will cover these issues and take account of a buffer zone and regular monitoring activities. To reinforce this action, a regulatory text is being adopted, that of the agencies for the safeguarded sectors. The Office for the Management of Cultural Properties and Exploitation is responsible in the name of the Ministry of Culture for the management of the listed archaeological and historic monuments and sites, including those located inside a safeguarded sector.
The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has reaffirmed that Algeria, which is celebrating the double anniversary of the creation of the Algerian Workers' Union, that the nationalization of hydrocarbons is going through deep changes. The Prime Minister Nadir Arbawi has inaugurated the gas production center of Hasiba Hamou as part of a working visit to the southern province of Timimoun. As the UN Relief Agency for Palestinian UNRWA has warned against a mass famine threat in the Gaza Strip, new airstrikes have been carried out by the Israeli occupation army against various parts of the territory. Those were today's major developments. Thank you for joining us on Radio Algeria International. See you tomorrow for more. Bye-bye.